Hi, this is Bob Lee with case study number two. Case study number two, 13 surgeons in 10 locations. Now, in the beginning, they were 13 docs, and at the end, they were 13 docs. They did not grow. They went from the year that we first started at the end of November, from 13 million in gross receipts to 16 million in 2 years later. They went through 15 million and then 16 million. $3 million difference, no change in physicians, 23% change in reimbursements. Believe me, they did not get 23% reimbursement increases from the payers. The increase, of course, in revenue wound up being 1-for-1 with the increase per doc because there was no change in docs. Now, when we first came on the scene, they were $13 million in revenue. They had $6 million in AR. The following year, they were up $2 million in revenue. The AR was down $2 million, partly in writing off stuff that they couldn't get, and partly in recouping money that was out on the street that they couldn't prove was owed to them. We did a mass rebilling and sat down with the payers and settled on some of the issues. They also couldn't provide timely filing. But the amount of money was big enough, and the practice had a good enough relationship that they settled on some of that. The following year, just to show you that it was no fluke in collecting some of this stuff, that this 15 million here wasn't comprised out of the $4 million in reduction of AR here. They not only got 15 million the next year, but they went to 16 million. So the impact that we had was significant through 2000, from 2007 to 2009, with no increase in providers. Just like in business case number one, we got approximately $3 million of AR liquidated, some through payments and some through adjustments, but got it off their books because it was just noise. And if you notice the first business case, if you've just looked at that, we got $11,250,000, which was again about 25% of their revenue off the street in a combination of adjustments and payments. In this case, I think the payments were about $3 million. Now, the next slide is at first, complex slide. So I just want you to take this one step at a time. What we're going to do is we're going to pretend that it's the end of the year in 2007 and 2009, and at the end of the year, December 31st, we're going to look back and see what percentage of the charges that occurred in each of those months has been liquidated. So, next slide. Now here we are. It is December 31st right here, and we're looking back to see what percentage of December charges have been paid and what percentage of November charges and October, etc. And you would expect that the farther out you go, the better off you're going to be, and you are. Now, what are we talking about with liquidation? We're talking about, we have percents here. Here's 20%, here's 97% right here. Now, what we're talking about when we're talking about these percents is we're taking a fraction of the payments in the numerator divided by the gross charges underneath, the sum, the remainder of charges minus contractual adjustments, because that's what you should be collecting, whether it's from the primary, the secondary, whether it's from the primary or a combination of the primary, secondary, and patient. You should always be collecting, unless you're writing stuff off as bad debt, your charges minus the contractual adjustments. It doesn't matter whether there are deductibles or copays. That's money you collect. It's just a different place that you collect it. And it's all controlled, by the way. All of that stuff is controlled by the primary payer. Now, at the end of December, and this is the percent here, and this is time. So at the end of December, in 2007, which is silver, and green is 2009, with their old system, they had only collected 20% of what they were supposed to collect in the current month. And that's reasonable, except look, in our system, they collected 60%. And then at the end of December, for November charges, they had collected 70% in our system, where it was 83% I'm sorry, 70% in the old system, where it was 83% in our system. And here's in October, 83 versus 87. And you can see that it tends to go up. At no point does it go down. And you can also see that at no point does the old system surpass our system. As a matter of fact, you get the feeling that after a year, not too much is going to happen, and you get the feeling that after a year, and you can see that not too much is happening here, that after a year, you're going to settle in with a residual difference in efficacy, and that is what happens. Because this is the summary. Before Encoda, the first month recovery is 20%. Max recovery occurs in the 8th month. The max recovery is 92%. After Encoda, first month recovery is 60%. Max recovery is approached in the 4th month, and the max recovery is 97%, which means that you have an overall improvement in liquidation of between 5 and 7%. And at $16 million, 10% is $1.6 million, and 5% is $800,000. That is very, very real money. And that's not even a very large practice. Now, this is what's called a functional decomposition by consultants, or sometimes people call it a task matrix. What you do is you go into the CBO or in the enterprise that you're analyzing, and you sit down with all the people and you say, tell me what you do in tenths of your work time. Doesn't matter whether it's a day, a year, or a decade. You're just trying to find out what percentage of their time they're spending doing the various functions that they identify. And you keep asking them what they're doing until you come out to 1 full FTE per unit of whatever time you're talking about. Now, there were 6 people here, and I started asking them what they did. Green is stuff to do with Encoda. We were doing at that time somewhere close to 90% of their billing, and as you can see, the total number of FTEs involved in the Encoda processes was just slightly over 1 FTE. Just 1. Everything else here that they were doing was related to stuff that we didn't do, or that they decided to do outside of our system. For instance, actually at this time we didn't do scrubbing. So they had an Ingenix scrubber there that they paid a fortune for, and they were paying almost as much money for Ingenix as they're paying for us to do scrubbing, and all it did was write reports. It scrubbed based upon the claim file that was put out, and then so you created a claim file that had bad claims in it, ran it through the scrubber, and then it told you shouldn't have created that claim file, so you'd unbill that claim file, you'd fix the things, and then you'd submit it to the Ingenix scrubber. It's a manumation system if ever there was one, and as a matter of fact, when later on we wrote our own scrubber, they got rid of it and used our scrubber. These are screens for manipulating the insurance billing for the billing that we didn't do in their billing system, because we have no screens for billing. There is no reason why you would want to have human beings go to a screen to do insurance billing. The computer should be able to do insurance billing. When would you not want to do insurance billing? It's nutty. So, but all these billing systems have a place for you to go to run insurance forms. We once had a client who almost went out of business because they forgot to bill Blue Shield of Pennsylvania. They were a Pennsylvania practice for 18 months because it was on something called Form 5, and in that billing system you had to tell the system what form you wanted to bill. They forgot about Form 5 for 1.5 years. Now you'd think there'd be other feedback systems that would be alerting them, but no, because you got to run these things. There's no pushing. Your iPhone has more intelligence than your billing system. It's absolutely true. It's frightening. Here are non-Encoda paper denials, patient pay issues, refunds, Ingenix scrubbing, payment posting lockbox, secondary insurance check errors. The biggest is secondary insurance check errors, that you get a payment from a secondary that's not even in your system because Medigap, Medicare sent it to an insurance plan that's not even in your system. Or the secondary insurance sends back an EOB, but they include the contractual adjustment of the primary, which is allowed in the spec, but your payment poster attempts to take that contractual adjustment for the second time and does, and so you wind up driving it negative, so you got to fix that. As a matter of fact, only about 75% of payments are posted electronically by standard payment posters. And then they had credentialing issues, and then this billing system required daily closing and daily reporting to close out the day. So, out of the 6 people, one of them was dealing with the exceptions that Encoda generates, because Encoda manages by exception. Everything else it does automatically. Here is the summary of our system for that practice. The practice revenue increased by $3 million. Now, they, prior to us, had this MSO doing the billing. The fees were exorbitant. The savings was $600,000 just in this alone. And by the way, they didn't hire anybody. They just redeployed people in their practice to handle the CBO. They hired no people. The CBO staff savings, they estimated that they would have had to hire 3 more people to do their own billing had they not had that system. And so the total is 3.7, and they negotiated a settlement on the $3 million. So, any further information you'd like on case study 2, 1, or 3, or any questions at all, please send us an email at sales@encoda.com or call us at 610-397-1632, extension 3. We'd be happy to talk with you. Thank you very much and have a good day.